I'm Rick Prescott, here to talk about some of the ideas behind my book, Save the Beatles, to help you kind of understand the thought experiment that went into it. And one of the things I noticed when I started work on the book is that there are a lot of playlists out there. A lot of people have done something that sounds kind of like this, in that they have kind of taken the hits of the 70s and they've kind of picked out a few and put them into an album form and created their own playlist, mixtape, whatever you want to call it. And the thing I noticed about those is that they all have one thing in common. They are all really based on greatest hits. Now, I know some of them, every once in a while you'll find somebody who dug a little bit deeper, dug into the albums, got a secondary track or something like that. But all of them include Imagine, all of them include Band on the Run, all of them include, Let 'Em In, and My Sweet Lord, and all the Blow Away, all these tracks. That list of tracks that I just gave you is a list of great tracks, none of which appear on one of the Fused albums. And you might wonder how that could be. These are the great tracks that, one of those tracks does appear. One of that, in the list that I just gave you, one of those tracks does appear on one of the albums, I'm realizing. But you have to read the book to find out which one. But most of them don't. And this is what shocks people, is you would find out, okay, Band on the Run, and then give that away. Band on the Run is not included on one of the Fused albums because it was too important to the solo album that came out at the same time. And if you were to pull that off and put it on a Beatles album, suddenly the Beatles album would have to be called Band on the Run. And Paul's contribution would suddenly dominate everyone else's contributions. They would have had to react to that. Now, of course, we would love to know. Paul comes to the Beatles and says, "I got this great song, Band on the Run. Let's make the cover picture a picture of us against a brick wall in a spotlight like we're escaping from prison." And of course, we'd all love to see that. We would all love to see that photo, and we would all love to hear whatever album that might have been. But we can't do that because, in fact, John's work doesn't react to Band on the Run, the track, directly. He reacts indirectly, but he doesn't react directly. If they had come together, maybe that would have been something different. But that's not this project. This project is to take what they actually recorded, figure out which of it goes onto solo albums, which of it goes onto group albums. There's a process for doing that. There are criteria for doing that. And if you think, if it strikes you that leaving Band on the Run off of any of the Meta Beatles albums is crazy, or somehow makes for a lesser outcome, you need to find out, because it doesn't. It saves Paul's solo work, saves Paul's solo album, but his contribution to the group album at that same time is fantastic, is out of this world. And that is because Paul had a lot available. He didn't need to use every single scrap of what he created. So I'll give one more example of a famous track that is not included on any Meta Beatles album, and that's My Sweet Lord. And of course, huge hit for George Harrison, probably one of the most defining tracks of his entire career, his entire solo career, probably his entire career, because it had such a huge audience. It was so popular. It was kind of the point at which he changed gears into a much more spiritual way of songwriting. And it led to, of course, the lawsuits and later acquisitions that defined his business approach to the music late in the 70s. So how could that possibly not have been on a Meta Beatles album? And the answer is twofold. First, the Beatles would have, as an organization, would probably not have wanted the word Lord in a title. They probably would not have wanted the Hare Krishna chant on their album. Now, eventually, maybe later on they would have, The only way you know this is you look at them as they were at that time. How would they have reacted to that track? Now, I can't remember if that was one that was offered to the Beatles or not. I don't think it was. And so we probably don't have any specific reaction to that track. But the other piece of that is that they, in their method of working, often detected things that were derivative. And they realized pretty quickly that they had to change something. And it's my belief that the other three Beatles and George Martin collectively in the studio would have said, I think this sounds like something else. And George would have said, well, I don't care. I want it out. I'm going to put it on my own album. And then it would have been a solo album. And basically what the process is in this period of time is to take All Things Must Pass. Part of it becomes a solo album called My Sweet Lord. Part of it goes on to the double album Dream. And you hear these tracks differently as a result. So, of course, it gets released. It becomes a big hit. It doesn't actually, that part doesn't change, but it doesn't become part of the Beatles story in that same way. And that's really, those are subjective decisions that are made, but they're based on what was happening at the time. And I think you'll find it interesting which tracks made it and which tracks didn't. And which tracks, like Blow Away, couldn't be on an album because there was no album at the time that song was written and recorded. So, this is information available in the book, Save the Beatles, and you can find out more at SaveTheBeatles.com, and thanks for watching.